Good evening, friends. I'm Ruchika Mehta, and I'm the editor of Hello Magazine. Thank you all for being here. Today, of course, it's more of a digital activity, but we wanted to do it in this environment where everybody can be witness to it as well. Though, of course, the world over, everybody's going to be logging in and we're going to create the activation. But today, we are on day 2 of the Styles Talk series, which have been hosted by Hello in association with DLF Promenade Mall. And the talk series were essentially a part of kicking off the festive season, where we spoke to different designers about trends, what to watch out for, how has luxury been post-COVID, what should, please join. What should we be wearing, how to go about it, what the world outside, what are the global trends all about. If you all also know, today is the World Environment Day. It's probably September 27th is also World Environment Day, week rather, which kicks off today. And this entire month we are going to celebrate consciousness, sustainability, saving the planet, how to fight climate change. And all of this comes starting when we start at home. It all has to start from within us. Today I have a very, very special guest and someone I admire very closely as one of the most upcoming fashion designers, Ruchika Sachdeva. Hi Ruchika, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Whose design aesthetics is absolutely different. She plays with lines, she plays with structures, she plays with fabrics, and her brand Bodice is today one of the most sought after brands, and probably all my friends have something or the other from her brand in their wardrobe, and let me tell you that it's a must-have going forward. Ruchika, congratulations on creating such a fabulous brand. And I have seen so many people wearing, I must share this with you. We were at an arts award, which Hello had hosted way back in April. And I spotted 5 girls wearing bodice. And fortunately, all of them were in the same design, but different color. Thank God for that. Otherwise, they would have looked out of an army school. So that's how popular your clothes are. And in conversation with Ruchika, we have another very experienced and a senior hand from the fashion world, another friend of mine who has probably been a part of the inception of the boom of the fashion industry in India. When the fashion shows had just started, the designers were coming out, the world was abuzz with it. She was a choreographer, she is now a designer, and she is also a part of the founding team of one of India's premier fashion institutes, NIFT. May I introduce to you Harmeet Bajaj. Thank you, Harmeet. Thank you so much for being here. I mean, it's going to be a very enriching conversation with 2 such enlightened minds. Harmeet, I must say that she has been doing a lot of research on sustainability and luxury and has written papers on it. And that is one of the subjects which is very close to her heart, and that's exactly the reason I have somebody as experienced as Harmeet with all her knowledge to talk to Ruchika, who very closely follows this philosophy in her designs and clothes. Over to you, Harmeet.
Thank you, Ruchika. That was a very lofty introduction, though it makes me feel terribly old, but that's okay. We shall have this conversation, Ruchika. Thank you all for coming here. We've been talking of the word sustainability. It's a very big word. It's a very heavy word, okay? Today, the times that we are going through, I think I would want to call the turmoil or the trauma of the climate change that we are all experiencing. And this is what made me think a couple of years ago about sustainability and how sustainability has never been taught to us in school, has never been taught to us in fashion, but now we are thrown into this big bad world trying to struggle to see how we can change the environment. So it's very imperative that the students would imbibe. But I do have here Ruchika with me and a bunch of other designers who are fairly conscious about the whole thing. What I do want to have this brief conversation with her is, what does this word mean to her as a designer? And as a lot of consumers, all of us, what should we be thinking about sustainability? How can we contribute our little bit to it, really?
Sure. Like you rightly said, it's a heavy word. We all hear it, but I don't know if we understand what it really means. So for me, what it means, I try and explain it to my team almost in a layman word, which is that when we eat food, we all kind of know about organic, without pesticides. I think being sustainable basically means being conscious in this day and age of what you're consuming. So as a business, it's a bigger responsibility because you're producing what other people are consuming. So essentially, it's about waste that you're generating. That's number one. Because where does the waste go, right? When you make a garment, there's always waste attached to it. So where does it go? And then once it's handed over to a customer, what does a customer really do with it, right? Like we've all heard of people disposing their clothes. And that's why there's a lot of talk about mass production, right? Because if you think about it, it's super interesting, but when you pay a certain amount to a person or to a brand for a garment, you need to really think about that this garment has been made using certain materials that were processed in a certain way, then they were handed over to a certain talent, whether it's a designer, cutter, tailor, all of them were paid for it. So there are many aspects to it, right? There's a material aspect to it, there's a social aspect to it. So from a consumer point of view, I think because it's like an environmental problem, and I don't think any government or key body can alone take responsibility for this, because I think we all have collectively kind of contributed to this problem that we're facing. So I think for us, it's important as consumers, as producers, that each one of us is really questioning, learning, and I think that's why such an event is really important, because I think all of us do want to make that effort, but we just don't know.
Yeah, that's a really good point she touched on about the government, all right? You see, we've all been told that we need to be conscious, we need to be ethical. We are living in something called the circular economy. We've all have hand-me-downs from our sisters, our mothers, our aunts. We've always lived that. But today we're consuming so much more. What do we do with that waste? Garments, if you know, is the second larger pollutant in the planet today, all right? The landfills, yeah, the land. So what do we do to save it? You know, she brought up the point about government, and I've been on a few panels and policy decisions wherein we said maybe this has to become a law. That is how it's probably going to impact a lot of us. But as consumers, what can we do? Recycle, upcycle, repurpose, these are the words. Explain to us these words.
As consumers, there's so much we can do, right? First and foremost, when you're buying something new, question whether you even need it, because the most sustainable garment is the one that was never made or that was never really bought. So then what's the next step? Definitely try and go back to your wardrobe and see what you can do with it. Before you basically dispose anything, think lots about it. See if you can style it in different ways. See if you can layer it in different ways. See if you can hand it out to someone. Like she rightly said, that we actually originally are from a culture where we hated throwing anything. Like if I tell my mom or grandmom, there's like a garment and there's a pocha, there's something else out of it. So I think that culture is something that we should kind of carry on. We are hoarders, right? So basically, that's the first step. Do you even need to buy a new garment? But okay, say you do need to.
I'm going to correct you here. When you ask this question, do we even need to buy, then what happens to this great economy? What happens to this great apparel industry? Because we are making to sell, to make money. But if you're going to reduce consumption, what happens to the industry?
I don't think that consumption can ever be completely eliminated. I think it's important to just sort of encourage, exactly, be mindful. Exactly. Exactly. And where are you buying it from? So there are multiple sources. So if you're like, okay, yes, I want to buy something new because I need it, right? And I want to feel good about it. And that's okay. So there are multiple things you could do. Obviously, we are now sort of hearing about thrifting. These things have become really cool. It's like secondhand market, vintage clothes. Wearing your grandma's something is really cool now, thankfully. So I think that is one way you can go about it. You can always go into second-hand market and buy something, because that way is you're using something that might not be useful for
That's a
somebody
huge
else.
market. They call it pre-loved things. So that's a huge economy again. We just need to see how that has to be worked out. I mean, that's a really good point. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there are all of them. You know, the Real is turned profitable in exactly 6 years when
West Air.
everybody else was still struggling, and they're selling second-hand goods and people are buying it.
Exactly. That's one thing. And then secondly, if you are going to buy something new, I would recommend looking at the labels inside. By law, one of the laws that have been implemented, that every garment which is produced needs to have a content label. So anything which is non-biodegradable will essentially remain on this planet forever. It might go into the oceans, like pollute the soil, landfills. So if you look at it, anything which is pure, you know, also our dadis and mums used to say, wear pure, because there's an environmental value to it as well. So anything with polyester, synthetic, it's basically made out of plastic. I would say that avoid that. I think that is a good way to go about it. These are first few steps that you could take. I could go on and on, but I'll wait for her to ask me specific questions.
No, I think it's very important that she talked from the consumer point of view. I also want you to talk from the producer or the designer point of view. What are the steps that you would, this is a message that may go out to a lot of the younger designers, a lot of the people who are in the industry. What are the steps that you would take for it?
Again, when you're making a new garment, I think one of the things is that how timeless can it be? So for me, I really, as a designer, the value that I'm adding is that, am I making a garment which can last somebody for very, very long? Can you take it out in 12 years and it's not like highly trendy, right? Because there's certain things super trend driven. So as a designer, you can make things that people can really wear. There's something called wear per garment, which is basically how many times can you wear a garment. They're things we've always, you know, all of us have bought. They're lying in our wardrobe forever. So I think that's really, you're not making use of that one product which was made. I think that's another thing. As a designer, it's a huge responsibility, right? Like you really need to go back to the, that's the design stage. And then from the production stage, the material you're using, what kind of pattern you're making, you know, what kind of wastage is going. Thankfully, when you're an independent brand, the amount you save materially is the amount you save financially. So it's actually a good incentive for us. Then how you're processing the garment, which is how is it dyed, you know, and then chemically, how is it finished? On top of that, how is it cut, how is it made, all of those things. So for example, at Bodice, we don't use anything non-biodegradable. A lot of our clothes are sort of, we question how much is enough in terms of design elements. Because you'd be surprised, a lot of embellishment, even though the base fabric might be pure, a lot of embellishment can actually be plastic, which is not a very, you know, sustainable or conscious choice. So for a designer, how do you produce it is very important.
It's interesting. I mean, according to me, sustainability can be defined, if not more, minimum 20 parameters. So how many boxes do you tick before you call yourself sustainable? That's the big question. I'll leave that to you, and I'm going to call the editor back, Ruchika Mehta, to take over and talk trends. Thank you.
Thank you, Harmeet. And that was an interesting conversation on sustainability. And I'm going to come back and taking it on from trends. Ruchika, you spoke about trends. Of course, everybody wants to be trendy. Everybody wants to look trendy. It's all about the chic look and all of that. But again, being conscious and trendy at the same time, how do you divide the line? Is there a blurring line, or how do you say, you know, sometimes there is a trending look which needs maybe meters and meters and meters of fabric. But then again, when on the other hand, we said conscious designing, how as a designer do you keep that demarcation in your mind?
Sure. So obviously, trends is something that you need to choose whether you want to follow or not, right? Yeah. As a designer, as a brand, your power is when you can dictate trends rather than follow them. Same with influencers. You know, if you do have some style power, suddenly somebody is wearing a certain color and you're like, oh my God, I want to wear it. Or somebody, so I think trends are made by people who are in influence. So if you truly think of yourself as a style person, then I think it's important to question how many trends do you really want to follow, because in the end, trends are sadly made by the industry to make you consume more.
Consume. I agree. The trendy colors also thrown in, and suddenly all the shops, the racks are filled with that color.
Exactly. So styling wise, like I think honestly fashion students do it so well. You see it all the time, them trying to replicate a certain look off the runway. Like I said, thrift shops is a really good idea. We live in Delhi where we have access to tailors so quickly. So I do that because as much as I own a clothing brand, honestly, like I barely get to make things for myself. So I end up like, you know, twisting things around, shortening them. Suddenly a crop top is in trend, so you can cut the length and you can really do a lot with your own wardrobe which you have. You can tie things up. Styling can do a lot in dictating how trendy you are.
I think that's important, and I also feel that today everybody has kind of understood the importance of styling. You can even see the consciousness about styling. There's so much more consciousness about styling.
Yeah.
Ruchika, tell us a bit about the current colors and trends of the season. The festive season's kicked in. Yesterday was the first Navratri. So, you know, it's the next 2 months are going to be buzzing. What is the season like this time?
Colors back in a big way. I think people after the pandemic, it was really sad, and you know, everybody was like, we won't.
Gloom, everybody's shedding the gloom.
Exactly. I think people were like, oh, why weren't we celebrating life? So I think colors are really back. So have confidence in wearing like bright colors for sure. Then celebrate yourself, have individuality. Since we are talking about sustainability, I wouldn't really say buy more clothes, but like really own it, right? I think confidence is the best accessory.
Love yourself first.
Yeah.
Love yourself.
Exactly.
And whatever you are, whoever and whatever size you are, love yourself.
Absolutely.
I think. And any particular color that you recommend for the season? What is your color of the season?
I am loving red, which is very unlike me, and I'm wearing a really bright color
You're
today.
wearing a beautiful green.
So it's about confidence, right? Primary tones, so your yellow, your reds, your greens, your blues, but like go for the pigmented shade and have confidence to carry it.
Okay, is this for both the bridal wear and western wear, or?
I am not an expert on bridal wear, but I'm guessing in bridal wear people must be wearing bright colors, right? Well, you do see people sort of going against the wave and sort of wearing really minimal champagne colors. So you can do either way. Anything you've done with confidence, I think, can make a statement.
Ruchika, any cuts or any styles this season? What do you think? Short skirts, long tops? What's in according to you, and what are you designing now?
So crop tops are definitely in.
Oh,
Like
yeah,
there's
we
a
can see
new
them.
silhouette where like you don't have to wear a lot of long things. I mean, you don't want to, if you don't want to wear something cropped, I think the lengths of the shirts or tops are definitely going shorter. So that is something we can totally imbibe. Then I think on the Indian sort of body type, layering really works. So now the weather's getting a bit, you know, nippy.
Yeah.
So you can always wear your shirts dresses as little layers. I think it really helps in making the size look a little bit more slender, which is always, you know, flattering. Yeah, I think these two things.
And what's your take on the oversized shirt? I mean, that's the biggest trend that hit this season all over the world. Oversized jackets, oversized shirts, that was the biggest trend. Are you one of, are you...
I mean, I've been wearing oversized since I started Borders, which was 2010. So it's been a decade. And I just think it's comfortable, it's chic, it shows confidence. It lasts forever. Like I was literally, this is not even, I was wearing the little jumpsuit that I had bought in 2010 when I walked the ramp for Gen Next. And I remembered that I bought it with my mom as the first, you know, something. And I still could wear it after 12 years because it was a bit loose. It wasn't really body hugging. It was still very flattering.
I think, today when we talk of recycling, upcycling, whatever, when you go back to the wardrobe, there are so many things you can still wear. Some pieces are classic and seasonal, and some styles as well are seasonal.
Absolutely. Certain things never go out of fashion. So I think it's good to invest in those things, classics. If there's a solid color, even if it's bright, you'll wear it. But if it's like a trendy print, you know, balloons or whatever, it's going to be in for a season, and then what are you going to do after
What
that?
are you going to do after that? On a personal note, Ruchika, what's your favorite color? Are you a monochrome person? Are you
I
black
don't have, you know, it's really strange, but I can't pick one color because I think every color has a tone. I can't be partial to one color as a creator. For me, like some days I like black and some days I like red and some days I like yellow. And I personally, as long as it looks good with your skin tone, it works.
So, are you talking about not being partial while designing or while wearing?
Both.
Both. Good one. You love your colors. You're a good designer.
I do like colors and I do love black. Yeah, I think it's, especially on the Indian skin tone, we're lucky to have,
Yeah.
you know, this savala rang and colors just look
Dusky
phenomenal.
touch
Yeah,
helps. I know. And I think that adds a lot of sexiness. And
absolutely.
beauty
I mean,
to-
look at the models these days,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's like about embracing what you have, being authentic, owning yourself. And that's about it, right? Like, that's the key, which
the
never
key.
goes out of fashion.
And Ruchika, are you also inclusivity is the new concept which every designer is following. It's suddenly become it's like they say, it's a conscious awakening. So are you also doing stuff keeping inclusivity in mind when it talks about gender and size?
I think these things are basic, right? I don't think it's a new thing. I think if you were a conscious designer, you wouldn't really exclude anyone. You'd want to make everyone look beautiful and give access as much as you can. So I think it's just the more people get conscious of it, the more mainstream it becomes, which is great.
I think it's just come out more in the open now. Everybody started talking about it, which is a great thing. Consciousness in the open is much nicer than in the wardrobe.
Celebrating everyone,
Everywhere.
right?
I think celebrating yourself, celebrating color, celebrating size, everything is acceptable. Before I end, I'm going to ask her one question and I'll leave it open to all of you. Ruchika, what are you going to say hello to this year?
I'll say hello to no crackers on Diwali, guys. Like, we like our air. We just can't. Like, this time, no. For sure, no.
We've been breathing sanely, like you said.
Yeah, we've been breathing relatively okay air right now. I'm just so scared what's gonna happen the morning after Diwali, and that's just
No, I
not
think
worth it.
the last few years people have, and I think there's a knock from the government and that has helped. Good. Would any of you like to ask questions?
You know, it's like, it's basically something that most people kind of feel as individuals who are part of this industry. You understand what you need to do in order to be sustainable, right? But with more and more brands coming in the space right now and offering you sustainable alternatives, the price points are still not going down. How is it how is it possible to be a regular person and actually make that move when the affordability of a Zara is, say, so much more than something else that you know is good for the planet? You could have one outfit of that in your wardrobe, but you can't have 20.
See, Zara is able to give you a garment at a certain price because they're making lakhs of it. So the cost of design, marketing, everything gets split up, right? And the whole point is that we don't want you to buy 20 garments. We want you to buy one garment. And if you have spent so much more, Zara's not that cheap, you know. If you buy like 3 things, that's equal to 1 top.
yeah.
And Indian designers are extremely affordable. So if you actually go and it's fun also to go and see a person who's making things. I've reached a stage where I just don't like to buy anything when I don't know the person, the woman or man or, you know, whoever, making it. When I can see a person behind it, there's integrity to it.
I think there's also an emotion attached to clothes.
Absolutely.
I mean, when you buy from designers, I mean, an Indian designer's outfit in your wardrobe is far more priceless than a Zara or a Mango or whatever. Zara,
Yeah.
thank God it's shut right now. They would
It's
have
like-
thrown us right off.
It's like how somebody cooks for you versus going to a restaurant. It's just different kind of love. You know the oil has not been used again and again. It's like once. A person who's conscious will make a better effort than a industry, corporate, you know.
What is your take on, I've often asked this question to most designers because I've been part of this industry for over 25 years, and I think while we are taking baby steps towards going global, You know, we've seen some of our very talented designers show their collections at the Paris and Milan Fashion Weeks and the London Fashion Week. We still are ages behind becoming, any one of us becoming a big global brand. You know, there isn't a Tommy Hilfiger here, there isn't an Armani here. I'm just talking about the mass. I mean, the very popular brands. What do you think? What do you think is needed, or what do you think? Why do you think this has not happened? If you go to see, the talent is immense, the resources are immense, the kind of colors and textiles and fabrics we have to play around with creation is unlimited. But what is it that has stopped us from that big leap?
I think it's how good the Indian market is. When it's so easy for you to like be in home ground and be able to sell to the people here, then it's discouraging to make that extra effort to go out. When you have, completed your customer base here and you feel like you don't have scope of growth here in your own home market, whether it's Armani or whoever, they may have started in Italy and then they would have said, okay, we've completed our customer base, we want to go somewhere else, we want to explore other markets. I think that's always the second step. And I don't think it's creativity that's stopping us. I think we've mostly been a production country. So a lot of designers from the West have come to us and we've
we're
produced.
still doing a lot of embroideries for a
Yeah.
lot of top designers in the West.
Exactly. We do one of the best embroideries here. So I feel that basically it's not creativity, but it's about structure. It's relatively a very new industry, and it's still considered, if you're a designer, like only 5 years back, people started to, they still don't take me seriously. If I say I'm a fashion designer, what does it even mean, right? You could be a person with a boutique. So I think it's also how new the industry is. What are the bifurcations between Western wear and Indian wear? Why do we call it like, why do we even divide it like that? Because clothes are clothes, and people in the West, Audrey Hepburn wore a sari, so how does it, a lot of people wear kimonos. So I think it's a bigger debate as to why. I think one is India is a very convenient market and it's massive, so you end up growing here. B, it's relatively new industry which works very differently. We have production in our backyard, so we don't end up making collections a year in advance. So I think it's the operations,
Right.
which is more, and the will. Do you even want to go outside India? If you want to, then you kind of have to change. It's like working with two brands, because India works very differently. If I show something, my customer wants it tomorrow and they know I have a tailor sitting who can make it.
Okay, I agree.
And when you're showing outside, you're showing a year in advance. People have budgets, they're planning. So it's a choice, really. What do you want to focus on?
Great. And my last question would be, the corporate world has started coming into fashion. They've started buying out brands. They've started, in a big way, the very hardcore corporate people have started coming. Is it a good thing or a bad thing for Indian fashion? Tough question.
Very tough
just,
question.
but just a very personal view.
Honestly, I don't know if I'm an expert on that. I think I'm more of a creative person. In my view, I think it's good to get help when you get investment from bigger players in any industry, it grows, right? But now we still have to wait and watch and see what it does to the creative side. How does it take form? Because I don't know if I'm equipped to answer this question of yours, but just from a personal point of view, I think it's always great when the bigger players in the industry start looking at something seriously. It's basically to say that, okay, it's becoming a business, and if it's making money.
And I think it's always good, because there is so much support and professionalism that comes with it. And it also means that, when you corporatize something, you have that bandwidth to do so much. You can concentrate on designing.
It's a great sign. We just have to wait and watch and see how it evolves.
Yeah, super. And on that note, I have a question.
I said, Ruchika, we're a country where you need a new outfit for every occasion, right? I'm a huge believer in rewear. What is it going to take to make that shift? Is it, the fashion industry that will lead by example, or what's it going to take? Because I think rewear is already big in the West. We're buying statement pieces, we're rewearing them, we're buying the silhouettes and the cuts that can be reworn. What's it going to take for designers in India to make that paradigm shift?
I was wearing the exact same costume 3 days back, honestly. And I think what will it take? Everything becomes a trend when people with influence are proud of it and they accept it and they make a statement about it. So if we have the more people with influence being proud of re-wearing, making a statement out of it, then I think it will trickle down and other people will be proud of it. Because there is no logical reason as to why you should not repeat except for log kya kahenge. Right? So if the log
I
start
think
to
even that's
say...
all changing. It's all changing. In fact, people want to come and repeat and make a
Yeah.
statement to be noticed. Today, you'll be noticed if you're repeating something and in a good way. You'll be applauded for that.
Hopefully, basically it's down to media, it's down to people who are commenting on people's outfits. Whether they say positive things or they say negative things will shape.
That's another debate about influence.
That's because the influencers don't pay for anything. They borrow things,
will,
they
and-
return it. So actually they're very sustainable. There's one sample you make which 50 celebrities wear one after the other. So they are wearing samples which were used for the shoot. But actually when you're a real person, you're buying. So it's important to know that.
That's a good point to know.
What do you think? Do you think that social media has, in a way, fueled the obsession of where people want to buy more clothes, or has it helped us in understanding that we should be more conscious and sustainable?
It's all kind of people on social media. I think it's becoming a replica of the real world because each one of us have a digital presence, right? So it's about who you follow. I follow a lot of sustainable people teaching me every day what I should do to be more ethical, more conscious. Still don't call myself that. I'm just a normal person trying my best like you are probably, right? So it's about the people you want to follow. Are you going to follow people who, that trend where you do this and every time things change? Or are you going to laugh at them and follow other people who are actually spreading some good, knowledge out there? It's totally a choice.
Great. I think we've had some interesting questions answered. And Ruchika, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
And you probably have been part of our first series on Style Talk, and the many more to come year on year. And you will be one of our esteemed guests and all. Thank you for taking time out.
Thank you.
And we look forward to a great season ahead.
Absolutely.
Super. And that was Ruchika Sachdeva of Bodies for You. Thank you so much for your
She
time.
only got me because I share her namesake. Otherwise, she would have not. She's like, Ruchika, let's get her.
You have always
I like
been
the name.
on my mind. You have always been on my mind. Thank you.